Welcome to Girlfriends Bible Study, a live Bible study with Connie and friends. Each week, Connie and her girlfriends engage in a lively conversation as they read and study Scripture. So grab a pen, your journal, and your best friend, and enjoy this enlightening Bible study.
Hello, everybody. Hmm, Everybody's coming on. I got sisters. I got sisters in the room. I'm going to share with you my sister friend Bria Lacour, who is going to be sharing tonight's message. She has very graciously agreed to bring us tonight's message. We're continuing our April theme about good girls and kind women in the Bible. And Bria is going to be, are you staying with who we talked about, Bria? Or you got somebody else? Okay, so Bria is going to be bringing a message about Abigail, is my understanding. So I will let her take it away. I will unpin myself and just pin her so you can all see her and enjoy.
All right. Well, hello everybody. Hopefully you can hear me well. I'm
Yep.
using, ye old wired headphones. So so yeah, should be good. But yes, we're continuing in the series Good Girls, Kind Women, right? I'm saying that right, I believe. And we're talking about Abigail. So, if you have your Bible, physical or online, if you could turn to First Samuel chapter 25. And yes, the whole chapter, because I mean, it's story like anyway, and so we'll be fine. But I'm going to read that and then we could talk a little bit about who Abigail is. Or actually, before I read it, I will say one of the most fascinating, but also really cool things that I noticed about Abigail, like fun facts before we read, is that she is apparently has the longest recorded speeches of a woman recorded in scripture, which I didn't really know, which is really cool. And she also, the same words to describe her as wise, intelligent, of good understanding are the same words used to describe, the same Hebrew word used to describe Solomon and also a couple prophets, including Zechariah and the Levites. So these are a king, a priestly tribe, and prophets, which I thought was really cool. I never really noticed that. She's regarded in the same way as wise and praised for intellect and her understanding. And we know we get, all the wisdom scriptures and things like that from Solomon. So that's pretty cool. All right. So yes, she is a prophetess and she is these things, but why? We'll read in First Samuel chapter 25. And it says, Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him in his home in Ramah. Then David moved down into the desert of Paran. Also, excuse me for my pronunciation of all the different places, people. I apologize in advance. Verse 2. A certain man in Maon who had property there at Carmel was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surely and mean in his dealings. He was a Calebite. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. So he actually sent 10 young men and said to them, Go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, Long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours. Now I hear that it is sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them, and the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. Therefore, be favorable toward my men, since we have come at a festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them. When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name. Then they waited. Nabal answered David's servants, Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take bread and water and the meat that I have slaughtered for my shears and give it to men coming from who knows where? David's men turned around and went back. When they arrived, they reported every word. And David said to his men, "Each of you strap on your sword." So they did, and David strapped on his as well. About 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed back with the supplies. One of the servants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day they were a wall around us. The whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him." So Abigail acted quickly. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, "Go on ahead, I'll follow you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, "It's been useless, all my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness, so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him." Fighting words. Verse 23. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed before David with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my lord sent. And now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives and you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my lord be like Nabal. And let this gift, which your servant has brought to my lord, be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant." David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." Actually, I'm going to skip a little bit of, well, there's not much, but basically what happens after this. You heard Abigail's long speech, which was beautiful, honestly. You see, like the last part of that was actually really prophetic. She was like, "Actually, I know who you are, and I know what you're going to do, and I know you're actually better than responding to evil with evil right now, to bloodshed or with bloodshed and all of that, and you can rise above this." So she also spoke prophetically to him while pleading, like, "Please, have mercy." She also, I think, spoke into David's like identity, which was so cool, right? She prophetically said, like, "You're actually more than this response," which he had, fair reason, to be upset about the whole thing. But after this, actually, Nabal ends up, it says, verse 38, about 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal and he died. Very unfortunate. And then later on, once David heard that Nabal was dead, he praises God for, yeah, dealing with his enemies and actually takes Abigail as a wife and all of that. So that is what happens in 1 Samuel chapter 25. So let's talk about Abigail and a little bit more based on what we just read here. All right. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, The same words, similar words used to describe her intellect, her wisdom, who she was in character, were some of the same words used to describe the wisdom of Solomon, of Zechariah, of, a prophet, and the Levites, who were priestly, a priestly tribe. So she was praised in the same way, using the same Hebrew word for her intellect and her understanding. And she was rightfully so also named a prophetess. And she was recognized, she's actually one of the 7 recognized Jewish women prophets. So among Deborah and Esther and such is Abigail. And so basically, as you could see from the story, when her husband was being kind of unwise and mean, and he gets called all kinds of things, she's like, his name means fool anyway. Like, there's a lot happening here. Which I mean, he was doing those things. That was what his character was. And honestly, kind of thinking we've talked a few nights, we've mentioned like the midwives and Exodus and their choice to kind of go against what they were supposed to do in harming babies, and getting rid of children and making a wise decision that they knew was better than that to protect life in that moment. And I think Abigail, even though she went behind her husband's back and, did this, honestly, she did it actually to protect him and his interests and his lack of wisdom. And that's what we praise her for, honestly. And, yes, besides, even though David had previously helped Nabal, Nabal was like, I don't even know who this is. I've never met him before, kind of thing. And he just acts unwisely, and Abigail saves um, him, all his men. It was repeated multiple times. David said, I was going to take out every single man, not one would be left. He said it again later. It's like funny, but not funny. Like the emphasis on that. And so every man was saved, and Abigail was protected along with um their belongings and all those things. Um, yeah, so another interesting thing I thought about as well is how they, as a family, Nabal was a very wealthy man. However, as much as rich as he was in livestock and land and all that he had, he was so poor in character. And I mean, how many people do we know like that? And I think it's very easy, no matter the background, to, I mean, bad character is possible, but Abigail, who was fortunate, who was wealthy, chose to have good character, chose to not turn a blind eye to all these things that could have happened to innocent people, as a result of Nabal's foolishness, and decided to make a decision that, while may look on the surface like, oh, she defied her husband, like she did something for um, the sake of more than just herself and Nabal and their belongings and what they have. I imagine it could be easy to be like, oh, I'm not gonna say much of anything. Like, I think Nabal and I could get out of this, but everybody else and everything else, I don't know, but she decided that, you know, it wasn't just about her, I think. I'm adding some to that and imagining it, but I imagine so, that those kind of things led her to act in good character. But man, my favorite part of the whole thing, thinking about how this is the longest kind of speech that we have recorded in scripture from a woman, really is the verses. Here we go. 28, starting at 28, ending with 31. Just how she speaks into David's life and uplifts. And that first part, yes, she's like begging, she's like, please take these things, please excuse my husband. But then she says, please forgive me, but I kind of have to say this. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for you, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Actually, when I was reading that, I just got chills. I don't know if you guys were listening to it and feeling that way, but just the boldness, the great character, her wisdom. Like, no, we don't have a whole book written by Abigail, but man, these few sentences of wisdom and prophetic utterance, just instilling this faith and this identity into this man who is going on to lead Israel, and her being able to recognize, I know who you are, and I know who you are to become, and what God has for you, and how He's anointed you, and what will happen. And she reminds him, like I was saying earlier, that you don't have to fight fire with fire. And like all before this time, I've actually been in the book of First Samuel and some of the Psalms that David wrote during that time that he was running from Saul and all of that. And like, I mean, there were a lot of times that, he kept running, he kept trusting the Lord. He makes some mistakes along the way for sure, like withheld some information, different things like that. But he tried to stay faithful to God. And it was almost like Abigail was saying, look, remember who you are. Let's point back to that. And, I just feel like I imagine that this was such a significant moment in the life of David, in the life of a great king who had his fair share of mistakes and, was human, but and wanted to avenge, but Abigail really encouraged him to the end that, hey, the Lord is the one who fights your battles. He's the one who does these things for you. Actually, remember how he did that before? He's promising that he'll continue to do that. And so, yes, Abigail, very wise, very great, not just beautiful, but also wise and intelligent woman who I think is, yeah, a good girl, a kind woman as well, and wasn't afraid to confidently and daringly, step up and show her great character. And let me just make sure there wasn't anything else I wanted to say. Yes. Yep. That was all I really had to say about Abigail, but I love to hear y'all's thoughts as well on Abigail, what you feel. I mean, it could be anything, but um, did you have any thoughts about Abigail before? And what do you see now? Or what's been illuminated to you, maybe?
So that's one of my favorite books in the Bible, chapters. Reading about, oh, Gina, look how cute you are. Um, so I love Abigail. And, when you said a lot of people would say she defied her husband, she didn't check with her husband. She didn't check with him. She was like, I'm not in defiance because I didn't ask his permission. So, you know, um, she knew what he said. She said something different. And in that way, you could say she defied him. But in general, she was like, okay, look, I'm not going back to ask. I'm not going to go plead with him and then do something different. I'm just going to take a different action. So, she could have pleaded innocent. She'd have been lying, and so she didn't. But she did what was right without asking for permission to do what was right. And because she was wise, that worked out. There are times when people who, for instance, may report to us might do something that they consider right because they feel like we did wrong, we made the wrong decision. That can go either way. That can, be good where they saved us from ourselves. It can also backfire. But it's included specifically because, I mean, you take all the factors into account. Like you said, she mentioned his name is fool, he is a fool, that's what Nabal means. So she knew who she married. She knew that most of the decisions coming out of there were not wise. So it's a little bit different. But if you have somebody that is your team captain that is typically wise, um, I'd like to hope that you would check in with him. But she knew that was not the case in her situation. She's like, everybody up in here is about to die because she knew him. She'd been married to him. She knew knee jerk this and spout off that and whatever. Anything that popped into his mouth, he might say. Um, so it worked out, thankfully. But I'd liked, and then Bria, if you can either put in the chat or send me an email personally when you talked about that some of the same words, some of the same Hebrew words used to describe Solomon and Zechariah and the Levites were also used to describe Abigail. I'd love to know where you found that reference, because it's relevant to some of the things I'm doing right now. And then also, when you mentioned that it was the longest speech in the Bible by a woman, I was like, but we just read Mary's song. Like Mary had a whole song. It was hard to believe it was longer than that. So, it makes me want to cut and paste, copy it, see how many words, how many characters. Like, I'm like, are we sure? Or is it the longest in the Old Testament? So I might do a cut and paste and let you know what I
That's so
find.
true. That could be it. It could be the Old Testament for sure.
Yeah, because that I can understand and would agree with. Yeah. Because all Eve did was point to the serpent. So she, that's she didn't do a lot.
Not many words. Not many words.
That serpent you put in here in this garden with us, that's what did it. She, even Sarah laughing. She didn't have a lot of words. Hagar didn't have a lot of words. Like I'm surprised that Esther didn't have some more because she had a lot of praying to do. I have to look at, that evil Haman. She went off on Haman. So, let me just do a little cut and paste comparison between Esther and Mary and Abigail because I'm curious now.
Miriam had a song as well. I remember vaguely that Miriam might have had a song.
Okay.
So, but I'm not sure.
Yes, she does.
But
Technically in
anyway.
Exodus, right?
Mm-hmm. Or yeah, I think so. Anyway, this was so good. And thank you for talking about that. I am interested to hear those Hebrew words. It's hard to look them up because we can't pronounce them right. But anyway, like you said, you don't want to do them a disservice. But I love that they use those words. And you said she was one of seven prophetess, seven women
Yeah,
prophets in
Jewish
the Bible.
prophets. Yeah. I need to
Okay.
know them too. I knew about Deborah and Esther. I figured they would include them. I
I'm
want to know who the
thinking
other.
Miriam probably was one of those too. Um,
Oh, yeah, because when you did your study, you mentioned they called Miriam a prophet.
yeah. So, but I do feel like she didn't exactly disobey her husband, but she certainly went against him in spirit, and I'm sure that's what they're talking about is in spirit as well as into the letter of the law. But um, to me, that reinforces that whole why we follow God first. Because sometimes our husbands, when you know you're married to Nabal, then and you're trying to do the thing, but now you have a choice: do I follow God or do I follow fool? Fortunately, there are instructions here, and they they say follow God. Um, and I love how she reminded David of who he was. Don't forget who you are, um, and the way she prophesied over him. And it probably didn't hurt that she was beautiful. That when she came up, that probably was not a probably was not a bad thing. Um, but um, but in her, she was so wise that not only did she prophesy, but she was kind of like, but when you get where you're going, when because I know where you're going, you know where you're going. When you don't want this on on your conscience, that you just, basically said, strap up, boys, and just wake up a whole village for the ignorance of one. You don't want that on your conscience. I mean, and just so wise in reading who he was and whether that would reach him, that you know,
Yeah.
yeah, she
She
was
became Michelle Obama. When they go low, you go high.
right. I mean, she went right there, and she didn't, like you said, she didn't hesitate. She knew who she married. As soon as the servant came to her, she was like, pack up this, that, this, and the other, and let's ride, because I need to intercept him before he even gets to the village, because he is rightfully angry, rightfully angry. So, and
They strapped up just like David did.
pretty much,
Should everyone get their sword?
I mean,
Oh,
everybody, we'll leave 200 here to guard our stuff. The rest of y'all strap up. Let's go. It's like, dang. But I love how in the Bible, so often, there are people who feel like, well, women are the cause of and then, if it hadn't been for Eve and blah, 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 ignoring all the kind of ridiculous things some of the guys did. But there are women throughout the Bible who prevent harm. and prevent catastrophe. And so it's a nice thing to see that.
Yeah, Esther and Abigail are in that league. I think Deborah went to war, so she was out there. She was truly fighting battles. But in terms of intervening and saving your people, for sure, Esther and Abigail did that, for sure, which is pretty cool. So anyway, thank you so much, Bria, for talking tonight. I'm exhausted, as you can probably tell. I am literally on fumes. And so Bria was on a different Zoom link inadvertently at the beginning. And so when the clock struck, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, I was like, oh man, am I going to have to think of somebody I like some good girl, kind woman in the Bible? So I sent Bria a quick message. And then I was like, okay, Lord, tell me who I have to talk about. Because I was going to be obedient. I was going to do things. I was going to figure it out. But then Bria popped right in. She was like, my bad. I was in my regular link.
And I can't have you talking hate on the ye old wired headset, because that's what I use all the time. My AirPods.
I actually thought of that. I was like, somebody uses it.
I use
I'm just mad because I can't
AirPods.
find my AirPod.
Oh, my AirPods are so fussy. I have 2 or 3 Apple products, and it always wants to connect to the wrong one. And then when I try to switch it, it's like, nope. Anyway, so yes, I know. I keep my ye olds right here.
That's funny. That's funny. I need to find the ones that I can put in my PC, because I have my Apple headphones in my purse for my phone, but I don't have my regular ones. I don't know where they are. I haven't seen them since I moved. So
Oh, wow.
they're somewhere.
A set of each in my purse and a set of each by the bed.
Well, I had a set. Well, wait, a set of Samsung related, like Android?
Well, it's just a regular, like it has the aux plug, right? Like
Yeah.
Yep. I keep an aux and a lightning.
Well, I have some that like I can use. They give them to you on an airplane, but they don't have a microphone.
Yes.
So I need to find the ones with a microphone. Anyway, Bria, thank you so much. Thank you so much for choosing Abigail. Number one, I love Abigail. I love her. I love her wisdom. She's not messing around.
She's good at get it done, girl. She's wise and she's getting it done.
Yep. It's like, no, we're not gonna have this whole community be wiped out from your mouth. Yeah, no. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Bria.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Why are you making a face? What are you reading?
Oh, I was trying to find the Hebrew word. I'm like, I see the word, but I was trying to find the verses for the other mentions. I was concentrating.
Okay, I was like, oh, she saw something she didn't want to see.
No, I was just concentrating.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, Facebook, for tuning in. We'll see you next week.